Let's get into it. All right. So, the topic of today's webinar is, well, I'm going to get into kind of the overall flow of this whole thing, but the real reason that TAs, being trusted advisors, technology consultants, get stuck or are underpriced when it comes to being able to ultimately sell their businesses. Now, what I've created is a 4-week series for technology advisors. This is going to apply to technology advisors, it's going to apply to MSPs, it's going to apply to consultants. These are folks that are selling products for other technology companies, right? But you'll find that some of the principles and things that we're talking about are going to apply to every business. Now, what has kind of made me want to do this is we've started with the million dollar agency blueprint, right? Which we released a couple of months ago. Make sure you guys check that out. Again, million dollar agency blueprint.com. And the whole focus of that was to help people build solid businesses, right? And so it's an operating system. It's an operating system that gives you unbiased insight into how to build your business in the proper way. So this is for technology advisors, this is for technology consultants, MSPs, those types of companies. It is a carrier agnostic, supplier agnostic, TSD agnostic training system and operating program to help you to understand so many of the nuances, so much of the nuances in terms of being not just only being successful in this space, but building and scaling your business. Here in just in a sec, I'm going to tell you why this stuff matters and why I'm the guy to teach these things. But after rolling out that, we kind of identified that there's this next gap. Now, some of you may not necessarily be at this particular place in your business where you're between 750K and 2 million. But there's this gap and there's this ceiling that people tend to hit when they near that. So whether you're at that number or not, this is still going to apply to you because this is the sort of thinking that you need to you need to start doing right now to prepare yourself to get once you get to that level, because things are moving so quickly right now in our industry. And if you're going to get past some of these challenges, you got to start thinking about them now. You got to start planning for them now, because once you're in it, it becomes so much more difficult to pivot, so much more difficult to make the changes that are going to be necessary for you to be successful. All right. So this is a live stream. We will also be releasing the replay to you all. That will be out either later today or by tomorrow. There is also a tool that we're releasing with this. It's a 100% free tool that's going to help you in your business. With every single one of these webinars in this 4 series, and the series of 4, we've created some really smart tools that you can take away from the webinar and then apply to your business to help with your trajectory to success. So let's talk about a little bit. I want to give you guys a little bit of context. So, as the slide says, I built it, scaled it, taught it, I've done it the hard way. In 2004, that's when I started my very first agency, and went on to found multiple agencies and acquire some agencies. But I did that the hard way, meaning that didn't really have mentorship, didn't have coaching. I had to just do a lot of hard things and be smart enough to learn from those hard things and apply those lessons, and so that we could grow our company. Now I built that company, that first agency in 2004. Unlike any very other of my peers or competitors at the time, I built a real company with structure, not an agent sub-agent model. So, we built out divisions, we built out roles, all these things, from sales to marketing to project managing to, all of the administrative function. We built that. So in 2014, that was the first time I tried to sell. I don't want to say I tried to sell my business. When I explored selling my business is when I learned something that a lot of people in this industry learn the hard way, which is that my business was too much of me, meaning that the business, even though I had built it as intelligently as I could or knew how to do at that point in time, I was still so intertwined with the business that it was impacting the valuation of the business. We were getting a lower valuation because anyone acquiring that business had to look at it and say, okay, well, if I remove Ronell from the business, what what's the value at that point? Sure, we had database. Sure, we had customers, but there were so many things that I was touching, so many of the things that I was involved in that were impacting that valuation. That's when I first learned that lesson and learned how important it is to be able to create a business that is scalable with or without you, right? So first saw that in 2014. And then a few years later, see, a few years later, and I was embarrassed to learn this, and I'm even a little bit embarrassed to this day about this particular thing. But there's a an influencer, business influencer that I developed a little bit of a relationship with by the name of Paul Brunson, and in Paul's when I first started to kind of take more interest in LinkedIn, and I looked at Paul's um, profile, and one of the things it said 5 exits, and I had no idea what that meant. I said, "What is an exit?" I'm a little embarrassed to say it, but not embarrassed because that's just something that I didn't understand, and a lot of folks don't. While that terminology may be more common now, the psychology is still something that is new or foreign to a lot of small business folks. A lot of these folks that fit into this gap that I'm talking about in this particular course, these particular webinars, we don't see an end game. We don't know what an exit is, like just again from a psychological standpoint, because it's something that for a lot of us, it just wasn't maybe either realistic or, again, just not part of the psychology of building a business, a technology consulting business. So because of that, we didn't build them intelligently uh, in an intelligent way to be able to potentially be sold to someone else for a higher multiple. So again, this is a little bit of context in terms of why I felt so compelled to build this next part of the education. It's a little bit of additional background on me. So, I've been teaching people, first of all, my whole life. I've been just a born teacher. It's something I get tremendous joy out of. It's my passion. I coach, I mentor. It's what I've always done. But I also have the accolades, and this is the most important thing. I think one of the most important things that separates a lot of people. Anyone can coach and give some advice. Anyone can mentor and give some good advice, but not everyone can teach. There's a skill set that you must develop. There is, and that ties into how you create curriculum, how you create tools, how you create outcomes. And in this current world where it's very easy to get access to technology, it's easy to create tools. It's easy to distribute information. But what we find is that we're often inundated with information and that information goes nowhere. And so that's one of the key separators and differentiators in my work and what it is that I do. I know how to get outcomes and I have the proof. We've got over 160,000 students globally in my courses and some of the biggest companies on the planet. And we average a 4.7 out of 5 rating. I think that's pretty impressive, but there's a reason for that. The reason for that is the intention, it is the education, it is the skill set in knowing how to deliver education and deliver it in a way to where people can get clear takeaways and where they can actually apply those things. Otherwise, it's just information, right? And we live in an information age where that's really easy to come by. So, those are some of the key differentiators. I have worked with so many companies. I couldn't begin to tell you all the ones, but there are a couple that are listed there that I think will be important to folks that will be consuming this. Like I've done some work with Inc. in the past. I've done clearly speaking at Informa events and worked with every single TSD. This includes, Tolaris is listed up there, but I've worked with all the big TSDs in terms of whether it's speaking and training, coaching, those sorts of things. I've done a lot of different things. A lot of big names you guys will be familiar with. WeWork is included on there because I love the work that I did with WeWork was really centered around entrepreneurs, which again, my passion. So it's centered around entrepreneurs and helping them with some of these strategies that we're applying to entrepreneurs in their throughout their global base of entrepreneurs that are WeWork members, and creating content and creating tools and training to help them on their entrepreneurial journey. Aside from that, yeah, I coach and mentor many TAs. I have to limit that because my passion um, outweighs my capacity. But yeah, this is what I do. I come from this industry. I've built multiple successful businesses in this industry. I understand it from top to bottom. I have been able to work with every single part of the industry, whether it be your TSDs, your suppliers, or the TAs, and everything that moves around that ecosystem. So I see it from some very unique vantage points. So again, the topic of this, where really what I'm trying to help people with, is once you get to that 750 to 2 million, what are some of the challenges? And this is what we're going to be covering over the last over the next 4 weeks. What are some of the challenges and how do we get through those? And one of the challenges that, oh, just a little spoiler alert, I'll tease, is just it's related to finances. Like the bigger you get, the more access to compensate to not compensation, more access to funding is important if you want to scale and grow. And those are some of the things that we're going to talk about. So, a couple things to just go over in terms of what today's going to be about. It's going to be about diagnosis. It's going to be about the operates. Always operator first mentality for me. So by operator first, I'm talking about you, the trusted advisor level, the technology consultant, technology advisor level. It's going to be operator first, operator led. We're going to talk about the 5 reasons that you're getting stuck. This week, we're going to set the tone for what you're going to see in the next 4 weeks. So we're talking about the 5 reasons you're stuck, and then we're going to close with a free tool that you can use, which is going to help give some clarity to how you're running your business. All right. So the very first reason that you're getting stuck is you're not operating like a CEO. Um, and how you know you're not operating like a CEO is, number one, you are the sales process. Okay. You're the sales process. The business stops moving when you stop moving. And then the work that got you here, something that's very important. The work that got you here is the work that is keeping you here. Think about that, meaning you're still doing the things that you were doing when you started your business. You haven't elevated, you haven't evolved. These are some of the key indicators that you're not operating like a CEO. And it's something that I've seen time and time again in our business. And in fact, not only by seeing that, that has been what we have viewed as success. And let me clarify on that. So what I've seen over my decades in this business is that the people that tend to be more successful as a TA are people that have strong sales skills. Usually they've come from a sales environment. Okay. They were a seller selling technology somewhere. And so they've used those skills, right? And they've, because of that, they've been able to build a nice book of business. They've been able to close deals, but they still never learned how to operate and grow and scale a business. Okay. And so they find themselves with a nice database, but they don't, but much like the challenge that I told you guys when I started, when a decade ago, over a decade ago, you find that you are the business. So when it comes to either wanting to sell the business, wanting to get investors for the business, you run into you're stopped. You run into a ceiling. Sure, you have a database that could potentially be sold. Right now, there are people that maybe want to buy that, but who knows what that looks like a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, five. We just don't know. So you're building a business that runs on you. That is something that people don't want to buy. They don't want to buy because if we remove you from the business ceases to exist, right? So it's kind of like that's the cause and effect. And so when we look at what a successful TA has been historically, which has been that lifestyle TA, that person that had sales chops, that's not what's going to be the most successful person moving forward. There's too many disruptions. There's too many other things. We're not going to get into all of that on this particular webinar, but there are too many things that are now threatening that type of business owner and their ability to be successful. So you have to start early on in creating the frameworks, creating the structure to be able to set yourself up to and getting the education to be a real CEO and not, now a 70, 80-hour a week employee who's getting phone calls at 9 p.m. at night and 5 a.m. in the morning. Right. So that's the first, pardon me, the first thing that's getting you stuck. Second thing is you sell what you know, not what you're worth. All right. So your pricing is built from comfort and not from value. You quote the work, not the outcome, and you discount before you're asked to. You're uncomfortable with asking for your worth. You're uncomfortable with asking more for more. Let me let you guys in a little secret. You can always go down. You can't go up. And when you start low, you're only hurting yourself. These are some of the things that, again, that I see that are causing people to get stuck in their business. So when people are starting right now, there's a lot of people, more people hopping into to the consulting pool and to the TA pool, and I always have a hard time determining, okay, what is my value? So that's some of the work you have to put into it to understand um, what the market dictates and understand what your value really is in that market. And then I always advise go up a little bit because again, you can always come down. But I will tell you that what I'm seeing and one of the most important things in establishing that value is you have to be a specialist. Specialists get paid. Generalists, not so much. And that's going to change even that much more moving into the future. So if you're a specialist, you're specializing in a specific industry, specific vertical, a specific um, technology that serves a very specific area or whatever, you'll be able to command more, and your worth is going to certainly be more than it is um, if you're a general practitioner. The next thing, your revenue is concentrated, and you call it loyalty. Think about that. Your revenue is concentrated, and you call it loyalty. Listen, guys, you may not agree with everything that I say today and in the coming weeks. But know this, my objective is always to make you think. I want you to think. And if you come with an open mind, you'll learn something or you'll challenge something that you think that you know. And I think even if you don't change your mind on something, that process of challenging, that's how we grow. That's where growth lives. So anyway, back to your revenue is concentrated and you call it loyalty. So what that looks like could look like one client is, 30% or more of your revenue. That happens a lot. You stop prospecting because the book is full. You're not prospecting anymore. Your concentration is fragility wearing a tie. Think about that. Concentration is fragility wearing a tie. So if you don't have diversity in your base of customers, right? Like that's again, you've got 30% tied up into one customer, you're at risk. That's absolutely going to impact your ability to grow, right? I learned early on, I was lucky to get this lesson, and it was a very hard lesson to learn. When I started my first company, RD Direct, we closed a very sizable customer, and it was way more than 30% of my revenue at the time. It was probably like 75%. And I felt really good about that deal. And I was trying to find more of those deals, in fact, but I felt really good about that deal until they decided to commit fraud and screw over my carrier to the tune of millions of dollars. And then I was sitting on the outside with no, with 70% of my revenue essentially gone like overnight. So it was at that point that I had to create a strategy for how we could diversify our revenue and how I was never going to experience that again. And that's part of building a healthy, scalable business. Um, Making sure that not one customer or even a couple customers are so impactful to your business that it could potentially put you out of business. All right. Next one. You have a menu not an offer ladder. So common, especially in technology. I often tell my clients that I want you to focus on others. Here's a concept that I talk about a lot, and I'll share the concept with you guys. I call it the chicken sandwich. And every single one of my clients will tell you that they will tell you what their chicken sandwich is because I've trained them on it. I've talked to them about it. So chicken sandwich is essentially that lead product, that product that you're delivering terrific outcomes for. It's great for you and it's great for them. It's mutually beneficial. What happens a lot in the TA community is that we're selling too many things, and we're creating a mixed message out in the market. Now, in the past, you might have been able to get away with that a little bit now, but the world is super noisy now. We've got in the technology channel over 1,000 companies that are selling their products now. We've got AI, agentic AI on both the buyer side and the manufacturer seller side. So the less specificity that you're coming to the table with, the more you're apt to get lost. You got to speak to a specific decision maker. You got to speak to a specific vertical. You got to speak to a specific industry and be able to speak in ways to where you can articulate that you're uniquely qualified to serve them and deliver outcomes. So when we talk about the menu, so it's not it's think of McDonald's. McDonald's is a great example of building an offer ladder. So McDonald's, as we all know, popularized the supersize and all that thing, but it all started with the hamburger. You went to McDonald's for the hamburger. They weren't they weren't pushing hamburgers, fries, shakes. No, you went for the hamburger. And when you got there, they said, "Okay, hamburger. Hey, how'd you like some fries with that burger?" You say, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, fries are going to be nice. Oh, what about now? These fries are salty. How about a drink?" And you say, "Okay, all right, I'll take a drink with that." And you know what? You know what goes great with the drink? A nice apple pie. You got to have a nice like dessert after that. So with a drink, you got to have a nice apple pie after that meal. That is an offer ladder. Everything's connected, but it starts. With a land and expand sort of philosophy. All right. So you start with your lead offer, and that lead offer has to. This is work that a lot of people don't do, to really understand who their ICP is holistically. Not just and a holistic ICP isn't just someone that can buy your stuff. It's someone that you're delivering terrific outcomes for, and it's good for you. Like it's got to be a win-win. And that's in technology because there's so many people that could potentially purchase your product or service. That's where we go wrong is we're speaking to everyone. And again, in this increasingly noisy world, the more specificity, the better. And then, so you're starting with that, and that's in the $1 million agency blueprint. You guys want to check that out? But we're starting with that, and then you're building an intelligent offer ladder off of that, right? So land and expand. Again, what we're going through is the top like 5 things that I'm seeing that keep people stuck, that get TAs stuck at a certain level of success that they can't break beyond. Okay. And 5, you think capital is the problem. It's actually clarity. You see, most TAs don't need more money. They need a real business that is worth funding. Okay. Capital can amplify clarity, but it also amplifies chaos. And the reason I love that second bullet point is I've been saying for years that a lot of times new entrepreneurs that have money, um, I think they fail at a much higher rate than those that don't have money. Because the number one tool in our skill set, in my humble opinion, for successful entrepreneurs is resourcefulness. So when you start from a place of like a bunch of money, you try to spend your way into success. In the same way that where in that bullet point where it says it amplifies chaos, if your situation is a bit chaotic, you're not organized, you're not built for scale, you don't have SOPs, all it's adding money just is like, you know, it, throwing cash in the proverbial fire, right? So yeah, what I find before is that before we get money, before TAs get money and try to scale, they need the very first thing they need to do is bring clarity. They don't have clarity. They don't have clarity in their business, um, that's driving their decision making. So in the next bullet point, it says, if you can't say what your business does in one sentence, more money's not going to help that, right? So don't get me wrong, you need money, and if you're going to grow and scale your business, and that's something we're going to talk about in future webinars, is getting access to capital and things, which are a major challenge in this industry, has been historically. I'm going to talk to you guys about the things that I did to get capital, because the one thing about operating our type of business, it ain't so easy to go into a bank and say, give me a loan. They don't get it. So that's something that we're going to talk about. But before you can go get money, you got to get clarity. You got to know, if you got to be able to say what your business does in one sentence, right? So before, again, going to get the money, we got to know, got to get clarity. We got to get clarity around our ICP. I hope the term, or the tone that I'm saying is resonating with you guys, and that it's all about structure and frameworks and operating systems. That's how you scale. I was speaking to an entrepreneur yesterday who'd recently brought on a new person. And I said, respectfully, the mistake that so many people in our business make is that they bring people on and trying to replicate themselves and expecting them to learn through osmosis, meaning that, okay, this industry's great. It's a great opportunity. I'm going to bring you in. You're talented doing whatever it is that you do. Come hang out with me, hop on calls, see what I do, and do it, and then do what I do. And, in 6 months, we're going to be successful. I've seen time after time after time after time founders in this TA community become frustrated by that, and just it doesn't work. And the advice that I always give them is, what we're missing framework, structure, and operating systems. So the advice that I always give is that the first area we need to start is looking at what you do every day as the TA, the founder, whatever. What is it that I do every day? Then we need to create SOPs around those things, right? This is what I do. Here are SOPs around each part of the business. And then when you bring people in, you're hiring them to accomplish or to work on specific areas, not trying to make a clone of yourself, because that just doesn't work. If that person could be you, they would be you already. They'd be doing what it is that you're hiring to do. So I've learned you can replicate process, but replicating people is not usually the best idea. So again, I hope what you guys are hearing from this, and kind of what I'm setting up for these next 5 weeks, is everything starts with having proper framework, structure, and operating systems. And from there, that's how you can build a scalable business, and that's how you can, and we'll talk about later about how you get access to capital. And once you get access to that capital, you can take your business to the next level and get past that ceiling that you're hitting right now. Okay. All right. So what we've done is we've created a scorecard for you, and I'm going to put this on Substack. I'm going to put it in my LinkedIn. We'll do it a post right after this webinar. So go there and check it out. Okay. It's a diagnostic tool to help you understand if you're stuck or underpriced, right? Or if you're on the right trajectory in your business. And this applies to you whether you are at 750,000, between that 750,000 to 2 million, or you're at, 50,000, 70,000. In fact, if you're at 50,000 or 70,000, now's the time to really be looking at that, right? So you can make sure that you're doing the right things to trend in the right direction. So I'm giving this tool away 100% for free. Again, it'll be on my Substack and it will be in a LinkedIn post after this webinar for you guys for free. Next week, we're going to be talking about building a business worth buying or worth keeping. And I'm going to give you some insight that comes from, again, my personal experience and the experience of the folks that I've been coaching for now as a decade as a consultant in the space as well. What in this industry, I think the most difficult thing to come by is good information from accredited sources. People don't really share info. If they have something that's working, they tend to keep it to themselves. So what I wanted to do is through this process is to share info with you guys that I've learned that I've learned through my own personal experience and now almost what years it's 24 so geez, 25 years in technology and officially, I guess 22 years as an entrepreneur in the space. So I'm going to share these things with you. My ask is if you get benefit, talk about it. And I would encourage you all to check out the $1 Million Blueprint Agency is $1 Million Agency Blueprint course, which through the end of the month you can get 50% off. So that ends May 31st. So go to $1 Million Agencyblueprint.com, use the code BEYOND, and and start building a business that is truly a legacy business and not just a lifestyle business. You can't do that without frameworks, structure, operating systems. All right. As a reminder, what we're going to be talking about in these webinars is what to do next. Once you've installed your operating system, when you've kind of got things going in the right trajectory, now, what do we do? How do we break through that barrier that I see so many TAs get stuck at and growing their businesses? How do we get access um, to funds to scale, that sort of thing? So again, every week, come back here at noon, and hopefully next week we don't have technical problems. Technology was teching this week, and that drains me, but we got through it nonetheless. So come back next week, every Thursday for the next 4 weeks. We're going to be doing a webinar continuing down this path of helping you to not only to create clarity and structure around your business, but help you on your path to really building something that is um, that's a legacy business, something that you could potentially sell for a multiple if you choose to, or create something that has structure for your kids to bring into whatever it is that you want to do, but taking it beyond the lifestyle business. All right. I think with that, guys, we're at the end of our webinar and end of our time today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and check the post Substack and check the post on LinkedIn to get access to the tool. All right. Peace out. Have a great rest of your week.